And action. Hey, welcome back to This Is Us with Chase and Rox. This is episode 2 that we are extremely excited to get out to you guys. It's going to be a little bit different this time. You can still watch it on YouTube, obviously, but we actually got to sit down with, who did we get to sit down with?
Cole and Cait Zick.
Yeah, really awesome couple. They lead Moral Revolution out in California. Really cool people. And we're sitting in our closet because this is, it's the best room for audio in our house. And this is just how we do it. But anyway, we got to sit down with them and just ask really vulnerable questions about marriage and sex life. And if you have kids around, now would be the time to put on a Netflix show and send them on their way.
AirPods.
Or listen to this while you're working out. Or just sit down with your hubby, or if you're single, take really good notes, but just be prepared for some very vulnerable, real conversation. So welcome to episode 2 of This Is How We Do It. So we're here. Roxy and I are sitting in our closet because it is the quietest, furthest away from
everyone,
from chaos. But tonight we have 2 special guests that we are extremely excited to be hosting. This is how we do it. And I'm going to let Roxy take the floor and kind of introduce who we have on our podcast tonight.
Yeah, so we're super excited to have Cole and Cait Zick with Moral Revolution. They are just a couple that are phenomenal leaders in ministry, and also just a couple that we really look up to in marriage and life and sex and all things, talking with our kids about sex and the future of raising kids in the generation that we're in. So we would love for you guys just to introduce yourselves, what you do, about your family, and all of that good stuff.
The first thing I have to know is This Is How We Do It part of the intro music?
We are currently working on rights. If I
yes, it's gotta be.
If I have to sing it, which I don't sing well, I will do it.
Road.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I love it. I mean, that's just one of the. I mean, that's the iconic '90s song, I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
Great, beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyways. Love the title of the podcast.
Love the title. We are Cole and Caitlin, and we have 4 kiddos that hopefully don't interrupt us. 4, 6, 10. And we lead the organization, nonprofit called Moral Revolution, which is all about talking about healthy sexuality from every age, for parents, for any age from 1 to 10, and singles and dating and high school, and then marriage, talking about having good sex inside of marriage. So we love talking about sex, and that's what we do.
We do it and talk about it.
Do it.
Hey, now.
Talk about it a lot.
Everywhere we go. It's like our rule. It's like our rule that when we travel and speak, if we're together, we have sex before we speak.
It's like a good cup of coffee.
It's right. It's the best sermon prep.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I want to kind of give you guys the floor. Part of the This Is How We Do It podcast is just taking other people's perspective that have healthy marriages, healthy lifestyles, but are real, that are transparent and vulnerable, and that don't put on a facade. And that's one of the reasons that we wanted to sit down with you guys tonight, is that we just look up to your relationships, not only as a married couple, but as just ministry leaders. And we trust you guys, and we have somewhat of a relationship with you. And so we want to give you guys just time to talk about, during this time, what's going on? What are you doing at your house? How are you communicating? What does sex life look like with kids at home that were maybe not homeschooled that now are homeschooled? A lot of people's reality has changed in the last couple of weeks. And so just take a minute. How are you guys adjusting to that? What's going on? And then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Well, I'll go first. I mean, Caitlin is probably the easiest person on the planet to be around. So just more of Caitlin has been such a treat for me and for all of us. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's trying to get some special tonight.
We'll cut this podcast short.
I think, we're all in a super, I mean, it's not even just that it's a unique scenario. It's a scenario that you'd never imagined.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have ever imagined in my life that we would be quarantined to our home in the grocery store for months on end with no end in sight and no finish line on the table, you know?
Yeah.
I think that uncertainty is probably what's challenging for people. But I think ultimately this time for anybody, it's really just bringing to the surface and revealing what was already there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
good.
like you're not going to be anything different than you truly are in a time like this. It's just who you were as an individual or who you are as a family. All that stuff's coming up into the surface now and requiring you to address it and fix it because you don't have anywhere to run. You don't get to run to work to avoid a hard conversation right now. You don't get to send the kids to school when you're frustrated. Everything has to be constantly addressed. And I can imagine that that's a challenge for a lot of people, a lot of marriages, a lot of families. Obviously, we haven't had any issues in the last 3 weeks, none whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a couple things are working on communication and connection is so different. Like we're all saying, like it's such a different time. And what's funny is if you are listening and you have kids at home, then I think you're going to totally identify with this one. Is we're all home more than ever, but I actually feel more disconnected from my spouse because it's like a tap in and tap out constantly.
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
like there's no, hey, they're at school, so we're having lunch together alone, or hey, they're at, they're in bed. Like we find ourselves staying up later every night just so we can feel like we can breathe. There's obviously like there's so many hilarious memes out there right now that are giving us so much life, but the one that made me laugh so hard was like single people, like how is it, like are there naps, what do you do all day, because like the 5 minutes I get at 10 p.m. by myself I'm like living for. I'm like, yes, that's so true. So it's so funny because you're like, oh, we're home more, but the connection is going to take a lot more intentionality because you're just tapping in and out of like either I've got the kids or you've got the kids because you're trying to figure out how to manage work while you're at home.
And then remembering that, wait, I do like you, even though I just had to tap in and tap out all day.
Yes. Yeah. Honestly, when Cole came in tonight, I remember thinking, I am giving him a look like I hate you.
She did.
Right now. I
That's
totally
true.
did.
That was the look.
I was also finishing working out, and so I was like just sweaty and mad because it's just so hard.
Looking so hot, by the way. So we had two totally different things going on in our brains about each other.
That is hilarious because I'm like, you're finally home. Welcome. And he's probably like, you look great. I'm like, I hate you. Oh, man.
I think that's been we are on the same page there because I'm spending a lot more time at home now than I normally would working in ministry. We're just kind of all scrambling and figuring out how we can stay in community with our church family while also how can I help be PE/coach/cafeteria lady while I am at home. So there's all this crazy things going on. So when we walk upstairs and say goodnight to the kids, I've been at home all day with my hot wife. So I'm like, I'm in fourth gear, ready to roll. And she's like, hi.
This is how we do it.
So I'm like, but then on the other hand, can we just talk and have conversation? Like, yay.
And it's 11 o'clock and we just now got to have a conversation. And it's I'm at early bedtime. Like usually we joke about like if it's not before 10:30, it's not happening. And right now it's like we're not even like having a conversation until 11 o'clock. It's like 1 a.m. and we're like, oh my gosh, we have to go to sleep. So we can totally relate to that. And I think it's just been a challenge for us to stay, like you said, just that connection point in community with each other.
So I do have one question I want to dive into a little bit as far as y'all's relationship during this time. I'm a big dater. I want to go on dates. Like I'm an extrovert. I'm a 7. Like I want to go out and have the experience and do fun things.
But I always like you, Chase. Now I realize why I like you so much.
That is 100% Cole.
But during this time, it's not super easy to be able to do that, nor are we even allowed to. Yeah. So how are you guys handling that? Or is that even a struggle currently?
Well, the 7 that I married decided to buy a $400 inflatable hot tub. So that is our date night every night.
Oh my
No
God.
lie. When this thing hit 2 weeks ago, I was like, we're buying a hot tub. I can't do this without having something new. And so I jumped on Walmart.
Send me a link, brother.
Please don't. Oh my gosh, yes.
They were on sale. It was like $400. I'm like, I could totally justify $400 on this because we're going to use it, and we have.
Yeah, I just was in it with the kids tonight before bed.
I think that was the cool thing for us is it's like, okay, the nice thing about the hot tub is we're not in front of a TV screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're actually sitting there and talking. I mean, we talked for ever last night.
Yep.
So I think that, not, and everybody can't go get a hot tub. So that's not like it's actually a fixable thing for everybody. I think ultimately what's so key right now is figuring out one of the things we always say with MR, and really we talk about this with singles, but it's so true for individuals, married, single, anybody, is figuring out, learning yourself enough to know how do you need to get your needs met in whatever season you're in. So becoming aware enough of the way that you tick as an individual. A lot of people actually are very unaware of who they are or how they operate. Very few people can act, I think the Enneagram has done a really good job of helping people become more aware of our subconscious world. But we primarily operate out of our subconscious world. So what we want, what we're going after, what makes us angry, what causes us to disconnect, what causes us to back down, what causes us to flare up, all that stuff comes from our subconscious world. We're not even really aware of why we're doing what we're doing, right? And I think that's why the Enneagram is so great, is it's allowing us to realize, oh, wait a sec, there are certain things I like, certain things I don't like, and that's okay. It's kind of giving us permission almost to be ourselves so that we can acknowledge, like you just said, Chase, hey, I like dates, I like change, I like excitement, all that stuff. How do you do that right now in this moment? So I think for me personally, and I'll let Cait speak to this because I'm a 7, so I relate to that a ton, Chase. I think for me, I've gotten a lot of life with doing new things that we hadn't really done before. So I actually, funny enough, I love doing PE. I'm kind of glad that I have to do PE. We did about 2 hours yesterday of the Zick's All Sports Challenge. We set this whole thing up and, 4 different sports, 5 different stations and, all these for the boys. And it was really cool. This morning, Connor, my second son, goes to me. He goes, hey, Dad, what did you call that yesterday again? Was that the Zick's All Sports Challenger? And I'm like, that's exactly the right name, buddy. He goes, oh, cool. Because I was just talking with my class on Zoom and I wanted to tell them what my favorite thing of yesterday was.
Oh, how cool.
Of course, it's PE.
Exactly. But I think crazy as it is, it actually gave me life because it was like I got to create something. I got to do something I would normally never do. I did PE with my kids at 2 p.m. on a weekday. Like I would never do that. So I think for me, it's been finding things that are just different than the norm that I enjoy and figuring out how to mirror those or overlap those enjoyment things with family. So I'm inviting the kids into it. I'm inviting Caitlin into it. We've been playing board games, which is actually new for us because we never really play board games. So
I've been kicking his butt, so he hasn't been enjoying that.
You haven't beat me in Monopoly once. But I think, those are the little things for me because, really that's all you can get right now is what are those little things that are different enough that are answering my need for the different. And then just to be honest, sometimes I run all the way to Safeway just for one thing. Just
Dude, I am like, I've never in my life begged to go to Walmart.
I know, right?
I'm like, please just send me a list and give me 3 hours. I'll be back.
Totally. So I think, that's my advice to anybody that's getting stir crazy like that is like, hey, you got to, because ultimately the last thing that's going to happen in my home is that we're going to live angry, frustrated, and stressed. Yeah. And when you think about it, this is the one time in our kids' life that they're going to be home and that we're going to be home for the length of time that it's going to happen. I mean, this really is a gift to families if we utilize this properly.
Absolutely.
So I cannot allow my personality of needing change to cause me to be short, sharp, angry, and frustrated. And then when my children look back at this on this time in years, all they picture is an angry father. Like that just will not happen. So I've got to find things that give me the release and the outlet that I need so that this can be a time of deeper connection, more relationship.
Man, that's so good.
That's so good. I think that that's just huge. And that's something I've been having a lot of conversations with friends with of like, man, how cool is it that our kids are going to tell their kids and grandkids about this point in history when they were stuck at home with their parents, and they're going to be able to talk about the memories that we're making and the gardens that we're planting, and this quality time that we truly are getting. But you're exactly right. My hope is that everyone is seeing that gift of time that we have, and that they're not going to have a time of, wow, like my parents were angry or frustrated or stressed and, financially overwhelmed. But Cait, I would love to hear from you too, just on that. I know as a mom and navigating work and, even working from home, I do work from home, and, it's kind of, I have a 5-year-old that usually works from home with me, but now having my other 3 kids at home and then bringing school into the picture, it's been a whole new realm. So I would love to hear, how you're navigating that, and even how you're communicating your needs and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I've definitely found that there's definitely it's been a roller coaster. So there's definitely been days where I have done kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, where my kids have seen me get super stressed, and there's even been tears. But I think just being very vulnerable, asking my children for forgiveness, them knowing like, man, mommy is sorry that I've gotten stressed. I don't want it, like, and just do it. We always just call it like a turnaround. Like, let's turn this around, let's fix this. And so there's definitely been moments just authentically, I think, for anybody to think that they're the only messed up ones that's happening to, I would hate. So I'm like, we've had many moments of we're like 15 minutes into the day and we're doing devotions and they're not listening. And I'm just like already fed up. And I'm like, I was so ready for this day and it's already like ruined, So there's so many things, but I would say it's cool to know that the habits like that we're building are like the first few days or weeks, obviously were really hard, but it's like fun to see them start to transition to like, this is our normal. So we do morning devotions and prayer with the kids, and it's been so good at first.
Which I hate to admit we never did until this happened.
Yeah, because like,
come on now.
Yeah, we had to get out the door before at like 7 a.m. And now it's like, hey, stay in bed till 8 a.m. Like it's a totally different story. So it's been amazing to watch them at first kind of like be whatever about it. And now like they pick their song. Sometimes I write their like scripture on a chalkboard. We read the scripture, we talk about it, ask them how they view it. Like, it's like, this is so cool. And this is hopefully like what they're going to remember. And I do think it kind of sets the tone for the day instead of rushing right into schoolwork. So that's been definitely a major win for us as far as like schooling and all of that. But I think as far as me, just as a mom and a wife, figuring out how to get my needs met, like I have to have time. And I think that's giving yourself permission for that. I actually, one of my things that I would recommend to every mom, dad, woman, man is like, you still have to have community and connection outside of your home. So I did like a Zoom small group call with some of my friends last night, and it was amazing and so life-giving. And even just hearing one of my friends say like, man, I felt guilty for letting my kids watch like 30 minutes more of TV, but I realized I hadn't eaten all day yet, so I need to eat. I'm like, yeah, it's like so funny because as moms, we could even keep going and going and going, thinking I have to meet all these people's needs, but like then we're going to get to our boiling point and get stressed when we're not getting our needs met in the moment. So just giving yourself grace, like we're wearing so many hats at once, and it was never intended to be like that, to where you're like, I'm supposed to be doing 5 things at once. So just giving grace. I'm not a big like workout person, but I actually, before this started, I had signed up to do like a program where they, send you videos and you watch them on your, phone or TV. And so that's been huge for me, as much as I absolutely kind of hate it.
Become my favorite time of the day.
Oh my gosh. But it's been so good for me to like just mentally release, just sweating. Sweating's good. It's been cool. Actually, it was a major win for my kids because they know they cannot talk to me during that time, because then I'm like, I hate this right now. It's so hard. And then like if they're interrupting, and it's so sweet. Like my 9-year-old brought me a glass of water and a towel because he saw like for the workout it says like water and a towel. And I'm like, this is so sweet. So it's just knowing like we're all in like this learning curve of like what this is going to look like and feel like in our homes, but we're creating new healthy habits.
Well, I think what you said, babe, is so good for the perfectionists. Like, you got to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Like, we're shooting for school, homeschooling starting at 8:30. If it doesn't start till 8:45, 9, no big deal, right? Like, if they end up doing a longer recess, no big deal. I think the key to this is that you cannot be so rigid that you're creating a sterile environment. It's got to be an environment full of life. And we can accomplish things and have lots of life at the same time.
Yeah.
Hey, that was good. Say that again.
You can accomplish things and have lots of life at the same time.
Man, come on. That's so good. Because I think Roxy and I are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum there.
100%.
Roxy is the rigid Google Calendar, up at this time, let's get after it and bust it out so that we can enjoy the day, to where I'm more like, let's draw a picture as a family and be creative and play a game and plant a garden. Like, it'll happen. School will happen. But I think we're trying to figure out this new rhythm, because Rox gets to, work full time from home, but also is at home full time right now with our almost said 4-year-old, our 5-year-old. And so that's kind of her norm anyway. But now that I'm at home, there's a lot of communication challenges that we've never had to experience before, to where it's gone from, this is just my Friday off, to now I'm working from home as well. And so just being able to communicate.
No time off.
No days off.
It just never ends. It's like, I don't get to just say, hey, I got to run to the office. I'm in the office. And so, just figuring out the communication barriers there. And that's what I want to dive into a little bit is, maybe you guys haven't experienced any communication barriers, as far as like, I know at the end of the day, Roxy is exhausted. And so as a husband, I'm trying to find that balance between, I know you're tired, like you're still working full time, you're homeschooling, I'm here, I'm helping as much as I can and figuring out what I can do to help, but not also get in the way. So how do I communicate to you, I want to have sex, but knowing that you're exhausted? Like, speak to somebody that may be having that challenge.
Yeah.
Oh man, we could go so deep on this.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Our sex life has changed so significantly in the last 3 years that hasn't been as much of an issue for us because of the progression that we've had in our sex life. There was definitely a season where it felt more like, hey, babe, can we do it tonight? I would like to, but she's tired. We're at the point now where we're both more mutually involved and more mutually engaged in it, where there's actually nights where she wants it. And I'm like, all right, Cole, get yourself ready, because she wants this, and you don't ever say no. You had so many years where you were begging, you don't ever say no, Cole. Together. So I think part of it is going to be the progression of your sex life. I guess I would say this. I want to jump into this part of it. People in marriage need to realize their sexual relationship is just like a normal relationship, a communication relationship. It's like a relationship in the sense that it's building. It doesn't actually go from 0 to 100 like we put the expectation on it that it's supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of marriages get really frustrated in their marriage because they're expecting it to be whatever they have in their head. And then when it isn't that, there's frustration, as opposed to, hey, we're going to grow and learn how to be intimate together, just like we had to learn how to talk, just like we had to learn how to communicate, just like we're still learning how to communicate, just like I'm still learning what that facial expression means. And so I think when it comes to sex, I don't, for the risk of getting it too deeply into your guys' sex life on a podcast, I think it's a matter, it's hard for me to answer that question directly because I don't know where you guys are at and what season you guys are at in your intimacy and in your lovemaking.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair, and I appreciate that. I think, I mean, when you said something earlier about just having to learn each other, facial expressions, what, like, I know now, Roxy and I have been married almost 10 years. Like, I know when I get a random hug in the middle of the day in a certain type of way, or a smile, or a text that says, just whatever, I'm like, oh, I know what this means. So I think where I'm going is talk to not so much us, because we're on the same page. It's like the other night, Roxy even said, she was like, you don't ever say no. What is the matter with you? And I'm like,
you don't get to be tired, PE coach.
I had 4 hours of PE today. I'm whooped.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I think talking to the, and you should jump in here too, babe. I think here's a statistic that I found very interesting that I learned recently from the Kinsey Institute. So the Kinsey Institute's out of Indiana University, and they study marriage and sex. Like, it's an entire portion of their school that just studies marital relationships.
Yeah.
And they reported that marriages in America don't admit to having good sex until year 12 of marriage.
Wow.
Where both partners say, we're now enjoying it. And that actually, it is crazy, but it actually held true for us. I mean, it wasn't until year 11 that Caitlin even got her, I mean, that was when she got her first orgasm, was year 11 of our marriage. I mean, it took us a long time to figure it out. There were a lot of complications there, a lot of mental and emotional struggles from her past, some physical stuff. But it really, there were seasons where sex felt more like a duty than it did a connecting point and something that we both enjoyed.
Yeah.
Babe, I mean, I feel like you should speak to this because I always am ready for the last 30 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, I think in this time specifically, I actually just was able to share this with my friend, and I think it was super helpful. So I know a lot of people are in this boat. Is we're not used to being home with our spouse and having free time this often. So normally it's like, hey, we're both home. Like, what are we doing tonight? Like, kids are in bed or we're just together. So what are we doing? Whereas now that's every night. So you have to find the time and the space also to communicate when you need time alone. And I honestly think that will bring freedom and health to the other night we played a card game, we hung out for a little bit, but then he went and did his devotions or reading, whatever he was doing. I went and took a bath, and I was like, this isn't normal, because normally I would take a bath when he's not home, or he would do that when I'm asleep. You know what I mean? We don't just separate intentionally in the evenings. You're normally oh, we're home tonight together. What are we doing? So I think finding the rhythm of, hey, I need some personal time, because then there's zero obligation for, oh, tonight's the night we're going to get together. It's just figuring out what your rhythm is and how that works. And really, it's a new way of communicating about it.
Yeah.
And then for me personally, as the overwhelmed homeschooling / working mom that so many people are in the boat of, I think I've just had to turn on, I have to do things intentionally to this is interesting to share on a podcast, but to stay turned on, to stay in the mood, to stay not just tapped out of I don't want to touch another human being for, I want to run away. So I just, whether I, take a bath, so I'm calmed down and I have alone time, and then this is super practical, but honestly for women, I think it's helpful, is you stay in a robe, you just communicate, and you also prepare yourself mentally, physically, emotionally to oh, I want to be in this zone mentally and emotionally and be there for my husband and with my husband and enjoy it together. So I think just practically, everybody has different scenarios of how they would get in the mood, kind of, I'm a very compartmentalized person, so I just shut the door to all the stressful, overwhelming, weird thoughts, and I'm like, I can't do that right now. Or, even just the other night, Cole and I were talking about just, the times we're in and different things the news was saying, or, and I'm just like, hey, this is really killing the mood that I was going for. Like I was mentally prepping. I'm like getting ready. I'm like, we're killing it right now. And so we just totally diverted, and basically I jumped on top of it. Like I'm like, I can't do this. I can't like load on all of this stress conversation and then feel in the mood. So we just diverted. We're like, we can have that conversation another time. Let's go this way. So it's just like funny moments of just communicating that and being like, this is killing it for me. I need to divert.
Yeah, that's great. I think
I think that's so important.
And I think the last thing I would say on it is it's super critical to kind of take the pressure off of thinking we should be doing it more.
Oh yeah.
I think that's probably a pretty strong weight for a lot of people, and I think it's really critical to remove that. Again, said this at the very beginning, definitely applies to the sex life in a marriage. This time where we have so much concentrated time together is just going to reveal what was already there for a lot of people, right? So you get to the end of the night and one or the other is not feeling in the mood tonight. That could mean one or the other just not feeling in the mood tonight. It might not have any other meanings. If that's something that's becoming a pattern and it's happening a lot, there may be an insight there to say, hey, maybe we should talk with somebody, see a counselor. We've actually went to counseling about our sex life because we actually had to work through things, and we didn't actually. So it's funny being in marriage because you don't actually always realize there's an issue because it's subconscious and you figured out how to manage your life around it.
Yeah.
And so a time like this could actually help you realize, oh, wait a sec, darn, we need to address this. And then that feeling of, well, are you kidding me? We got another thing to address. We've already worked through so much in our marriage. I don't want to start another issue. I don't want to work through another thing, like that frustrated moment of crap. But one of the things that we've always tried to talk through whenever we've had a moment like that is like, hey, this acknowledging that we have to go to counseling again or work through something is not us saying our marriage is bad. It's us saying, hey, we want to go from glory to glory. There's something better on the other side of this. Things are good, but we want to get better than we already are.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Right. It could be a simple, as Cait said, make sure you have time. Maybe it's just tired at the end of the night. I would also encourage marriages to do an inventory and say, hey, maybe we should think a little bit deeper, and maybe we should lean into a little bit more of interpersonal work and heart work and emotion work, because maybe this could be a really powerful opportunity to address some things that really haven't been addressed before.
Yep. Yeah. And you can still go to counseling because people are doing Zoom counseling.
So that's right.
Yeah. Well, I think taking an inventory and just sitting down and having some really critical conversations about where we're at. We listened to y'all's podcast not too long ago. I'm going to do a terrible job and be a terrible host and not remember their names, about who did the sexpectation cards.
Yeah.
So I got home one evening and the sexpectation cards were in our bedroom, and I was like, what in the world? Like, what kind of twisted board game are we? Like, what is going on? And it was so good because it encouraged healthy conversation that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think the big stigma in the Christian world or in the church world is that you're just supposed to have sex but not talk about it. And that's what I love about you guys, is how open you can get and how just amazing the resources that you have available and the resources that you know of. And so when we went through those cards, we just took an inventory of our sex life, and it was like, I like it when you do this, and I don't like it when you do this. And just being able to communicate, man, just the health that came out of that was phenomenal. And I think that's what's important a lot during this time. And what you guys are saying is you're going to have to find new rhythms. There's a lot of things changing. You're going to need to be able to communicate what you're feeling, communicate your needs, and just take an inventory of where you're at. And I think, man, this time with you guys has blessed us so much, and I know it will bless many others. But leave us with just a one-liner. If you had a 30-second elevator pitch to a young married couple during this time to just stay healthy, to stay in communication, what would it be?
Don't settle for safe, only settle for full victory.
Oh man. Okay.
So good.
Say it again. We got to get it again. Say it again.
Don't settle for safe. Only settle for full victory.
Man, I'm waving my hanky. You can't see. That's a good word.
Oh man, mine one-liner. I'm trying to think of how I can make it only a one-liner, but it's the first thing I thought of when you said it. Is that we are being trained by what we're entertained by.
Yeah.
So what you're being entertained by on Netflix and stuff, since you also probably, especially young married couples who might not have kids or only have babies, what you're watching and letting into you is going to, feed you things that
It's good, babe.
that aren't real marriage, like whether it's a cheesy romance or whether it's a show that has lots of sex in it, it's not real. Like what you have in marriage is real. And so don't be trained by what you're entertained by, and probably change what you're being entertained by.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's so good. Well, thank you guys so much for this conversation. We really appreciate it. We love you guys. I would love for you just to tell us where we can find you, where everyone can find amazing resources to really be able to just get in contact with you guys and what all that you are a part of.
Yeah, so moralrevolution.com is definitely the simplest and easiest place to find all of the resources, but we also have a podcast. Let's talk about it. Moral Revolution podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. We have a YouTube channel. Instagram is really where our movement lives. Facebook, and then you'll be able to find Cait Zick and Cole Zick from there as well.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We loved it.
It was great. Love you guys.
That was good. Love you guys. Appreciate it.